let's get to the reason we're here tonight, April Dunford. I'm so excited she's in town from Toronto, and we lined the stars up to make things work out to be in person. She spoke at our meetup during COVID virtually. If you, I'm sure most of you know who she is, but she's a positioning expert. There aren't that many positioning experts in the world. Her first book, obviously awesome, is a bestseller. And her most recent book is Sales Pitch, focusing more on sales, is also doing very well. And that's what she's going to talk to us about. But she's a founder and consultant at Ambient Strategy. She's a board member, advisor, and investor on a lot of different companies. That's her website, aprildunford.com. That's her X handle. And she's going to talk about how to craft a winning story for your product. So with that, please join me in giving April a warm welcome. Welcome, April.
Awesome. Thank you. Everybody see it? Are we good? You guys can hear me all right? Good. I was over at SaaStr earlier today and then talked entirely too much. So I'm feeling like my throat has kind of had a lot of talking today, but I'm hoping this is going to be great. This is a bit of a weird topic to give at a product-centric meetup. But it's a little bit like, I feel like this is kind of a medicine talk. Like you want it, but you need it. And so, I suggested it to Dan. He was like, I don't know. And I was like, they need it. Shut up. They're getting it whether they want it or not. So this is a talk about how to tell a great product story, which is also, put another way, how to build a good sales pitch. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. I work a lot with tech companies. Most of the companies that I work with, I'm dealing with the founder, like at the beginning anyway. And most of the founders come from the product side of the house. They're product people. And when we talk about sales, people are like, ooh, sales is hard, really hard. Everybody agrees sales is hard. But I don't want to talk about that. I actually want to turn it around a little bit. I kind of want to take it a bit from the customer's perspective. And I'm going to say something that's maybe a little controversial, but I think buying is hard. Buying is hard. Now, when I say that, some people are like looking at me like this. They're like, no, it ain't, April. That's called shopping. And that's easy. Like spending money is easy. What are you talking about? That's a stupid thing to say. And I get it because buying some things is really fun. Like I like buying a pair of shoes. I like buying a drink at the bar. Like lots of things are fun. But then you can think of things that are really not fun. Like who likes buying insurance? This is not fun. This is unfun and hard. And if we think about it, most of the things that businesses buy are actually really difficult things to purchase. And so I'm going to walk you through an example, and I'm going to do a stupid example, and then I'm going to do that has nothing to do with tech, and then I'm going to do a smart example that has something to do with tech. So suffer through the stupid one until we get to the smart one. This story is called April Buys a Toilet. So this is an example of something that I thought was going to be easy, and then it wasn't. So I live in Toronto. I bought a house, and it's kind of an old dumpy house, and inside the old dumpy house is this terrible bathroom. So I hired a guy who's going to come in and fix the bathroom. And he comes to me on day 2, and he says, look, you got to go to the toilet store and pick out a toilet. And I said, okie dokie, I've never bought a toilet before, but how hard can that be? It's just a toilet. So I go to the toilet store, and I walk in, and a sales rep comes to me, and the sales rep says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, you can. I'm here to buy a toilet. And he says, what kind of toilet do you want? And I'm like, the flushy one? And he says, look, lady, we got a lot of toilets. They're all back here in the corner. You go over there, have a look. The prices are all there. A little tag telling you, the features and stuff. And you pick one. And once you've figured out which of these ones you want to buy, you come back, you tell me, I'm going to sell you. Okay. So I go back, and here's what I see. There's like 100 million toilets, and they all look the same, but they are not the same. In fact, some of them cost a couple $100, and some of them cost like a couple $1,000. And not only that, each of them have this little sticker, and there's all these features that I know nothing about. So they're talking about things like trapways and flush modes and something called a flapper. And I don't know what a flapper is, but it seems important. And some of them have a flapper and some of them don't have a flapper. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not educated enough to buy a toilet. I wasn't expecting this. And so I spent like an hour at the toilet store. I went, oh my God, I'm going to have to go Google this. So I go home and I get on the internet and I'm now becoming a toilet expert. So I'm like Googling toilets. What do I have to look for in toilets? And it turns out toilets are full of features and tech. There's like water efficiency and seat height. There's different seat heights and those matter. And there's dual flush technology and there's the freaking flappers. I still don't know what they do. There's visible and then there's these trapways. And then I learned the most disgusting thing about toilets. And now I'm going to teach you. There is a score. The score is called the MAP score. And the MAP is the amount of solid waste that the toilet can handle in a single flush. 300 to 600 grams is good. But some toilets can handle up to 1,000 grams, which is 2.2 pounds. It's like a little dog. So at this point, I'm like, this is disgusting. My head is full of toilet knowledge. I don't want to know. I don't want to be a toilet. I'm a busy person. I'm running a consulting business here. I got kids. I got a dog. I don't need to flush him. I'm like, I don't need to know any of this stuff. And so then I get this genius idea. And here's my genius idea. I'm like, you know what? The old toilet was fine. That thing was flushing just fine. There was nothing wrong with it. Okay, it's not brand new, but I don't have time for this. I'm going to tell the guy, keep the old one, and when and if it breaks in the future, then I'm going to worry about this purchase in the future. That's it. Done. So what happened? I spent 3 weeks looking at toilets, researching toilets. I went to the showroom twice. I spent what felt like infinity on the internet. And how many toilets did I buy? 0. I didn't buy any toilets. So I'm not saying buying your AI-powered data analytics, whatever thing it is that you sell is worse than buying a toilet. I'm actually saying exactly that. Actually, it's way worse. It's 1,000,000 times worse. So think about it. How does a typical B2B tech product get bought? Let's take something easy. Let's do accounting software. Anybody here sell accounting software? Let's do accounting software. So I'm the vice president of finance. And I wake up in the morning and I'm going, you know what sucks? Our accounting software sucks. We're in the middle of an audit and it doesn't do this big list of things that I needed to do. This is bull crap. I need new accounting software. I got to get some new accounting software and it's got to happen now. Now, does the vice president of finance go Googling around on the internet? No, they don't. They walk into the office and they look around for their victim, right? And then they say, John, you, controller, figure this out. Go figure out what accounting package we need to buy. You go figure it out and come back and tell me, right? And how's John feeling? Oh, John's pissed. John's like, I don't know anything about accounting software. I'm an accounting software user. So I used this package. I used a different one at my last job, but I'm not an expert. I don't know who the vendors are in accounting software. I don't know what's possible and what's not possible in accounting software. I don't really know what our purchase criteria is. I kind of know we got this audit thing, but I kind of don't know too much. And so what does John do? John Googles on the internet like anybody would. And what does he see? 9,000 million packages of accounting software, and they all look exactly the same. I'm looking at G2 Crowd, and there's 59 accounting software packages in the up right corner. I'm like, and they all look the same. One is a 5.1 and one is a 5.2. Who cares? They're all the same. I go to the websites, and they all say we're the world's #1 accounting software. Every single one of them, for some reason. I go into whatever. I've got Lumascapes and Gartner quadrants and all this stuff. And he's researching and researching and researching and researching, and he's got all this information that he doesn't actually know how to make sense of. And then let's say John, at this moment, clicks on that button on your website that says, give me a demo. Now what happens? Oh, yeah, this is great. So that is going to create a lead, and your sales rep's going to get that lead. And they're going to set up the Zoom call. John comes into the Zoom call, and your sales rep's there, says, oh, man, I can't wait. And then the guy comes in, he says, hey, I'm here to see your accounting software. And the rep says, fantastic. Welcome to my wind tunnel of features. Oh, I'm going to give it to you. Here's a feature, here's a feature, here's a feature, here's a feature, here's another one, here's another one. I got 12 drop-down menus. I'm clicking on every single one. I got to say this. How's John feeling? Overwhelmed? Just helping John make a decision? John's doing 3 of these demos. And all three of these demos from all three vendors look just like this. Feature, 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 feature. Right? Now, John's feeling stressed. John might be low-key freaking out. And you know why? Because if John makes a bad decision, bad things happen. This is not like buying a pair of shoes or a drink at the bar. If I buy a pair of shoes and I buy the wrong shoes, no big deal. I just don't buy those again. If John picks the wrong accounting software, this is different, right? He's going to walk into his boss and say, I looked at all the things, I did the demo, and I decided we're going to use that SAP thing. And she's going to go, are you nuts? You don't use that here. Look at what company. He looks like a dummy in front of his boss. Not good, right? Maybe he picks accounting software that the whole accounting team hates. And now he's that guy that picked that thing. And everyone's like, who's the guy that picked this thing? Oh, that guy. Don't invite him to lunch. He sucks. Maybe they fail the audit because it doesn't do the three things the VP finance really needed it to do. And then they fail the audit. Then what happens? Well, he gets passed over for a promotion. Maybe he gets fired. What is the easiest, lowest risk decision for John to make in this situation? Is to do the same thing I did with the toilet man. Is to go back to his boss and say, you know what? Now's not a good time. We're in the middle of the audit. Are you kidding? We can't switch the accounting package now. This is a bad time. This is like, I looked at this stuff, but it's complicated. The thing we have now is good enough. It's good enough. It's like, we don't love it. Whatever doesn't do everything, we can get by with it. And let's kick the can down the road and let's just make the decision next year. And what he's hoping is that next year, when Janet, the VP finance, comes in, he's going to dive under the desk and be like, not me, man, somebody else. Now, you might not think this happens a lot, but the research tells us this happens all the time. In fact, this is the most fearsome competition that we have in B2B software. So the research tells us that 40 to 60% of B2B software purchase processes, this means company decided that the thing they have right now is no good. They're going to embark on a purchase process to go look for something else. And they embarked on that purchase process. And in the end, they said, I'm not going to buy anything. 40 to 60% of the time, that's what happens. You do not have a competitor you lose this much to, except this. Now, if you scratch on this data, you might say, well, maybe they looked at the other things, but they decided that the status quo thing they were using was fine. And so they actually are happily staying with the status quo. In fact, that's not true. When you scratch at this data, it shows that in the majority of the times that there is no decision. It is not no decision because we made an active decision to pick status quo. It's no decision because we could not confidently pick something that we felt good about, meaning we weren't going to regret it later, and it didn't seem risky. We couldn't confidently make a decision, so we just decided we're not going to make any decision at all. Oh, I'm going back to Toilet Town just for a second. So can you believe this stock photo? It's called Handsome Men in Toilet Store. I showed this to somebody and my friend was like, handsome men? Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, so what happened, it's not the end of my toilet story. What actually happened is I went back, I told my contractor, hey, I'm just going to keep the old toilet. And he's looking at me like I'm crazy. And he said, what? No, it's gone. We recycled it. It's gone to the big bathroom in the sky. You cannot use that toilet. It's gone. You actually have to go and pick a toilet. And I was like, oh, man. And then he's like, if we need it by tomorrow, or we're going to, I'm like, oh, my God, I got to go back to the toilet store. So I'm back to the toilet store, and I meet this toilet salesman. His name's John. Never works. This joke never works. I was in the UK, and I said, he met this guy, and his name was Lou. Crickets. Anyway, sales rep comes up to me, and he says, can I help you? And I said, yeah, you can. I got a toilet emergency on my hand. I got to get a toilet. I cannot leave here without a toilet. And I said, I've been looking at toilets for weeks. I don't know anything about toilets. Just tell me what toilet to buy. I'm like this. And the guy says, yeah, I can sympathize. Like, it's hard buying a toilet. And I said, it is hard. It's been shit. And he said, we don't use that word here, ma'am. It's solid waste. So it's been solid waste, dude. Sell me a toilet. And he says, look, I'm going to teach you how to buy a toilet. And I said, ooh, teach me toilet, Obi-Wan. And he said, you only need to worry about 3 things. I said, oh yeah, what's 3 things? He says, you need to worry about quality, aesthetics, and space. And I was like, all right. And he says, look, see all these toilets over here? They're like $200. There's all these toilets over here, and they're way more expensive. All that stuff about flappers and whatever, it's a quality thing. These ones are higher quality. These ones are lower quality. So higher quality ones, you get more flushes out of them before you got to call the plumber. Lower quality ones, not so many flushes. I'm like, who buys a low quality toilet, my dude? And he says, look, not all toilets are used the same. Like, you got a spare bathroom, hardly ever gets flushed. You got a bathroom in the basement, nobody ever flushes that thing. You got a vacation property, you'd be stupid to buy one of these really expensive ones. You could just go with, it's like, hey, that's neat. I never really thought about that. But yeah, okay, cool. Look, this is my main bathroom. So forget the low quality ones. Good. So we eliminate those. And he says, second thing is aesthetics. So people got a certain look they're going for in their bathroom, and they want a gold toilet or something. And those are all high quality toilets, but you're going to pay a little bit more for the special aesthetics. And so if you got some aesthetic requirements, we got the aesthetic toilets over here. And I said, look, I do not have any toilet fashion requirements. I'm good. And so we eliminate those. Great. Now we're getting somewhere. We're getting down. And he says, last thing is space. Some toilets, they got this tank, right? And if you got a little wee bathroom, you can put the tank in the wall and it saves you like 4 or 5 inches, like this much. And so if you got a little wee space, you put the tank in the wall. The downside of that is if something goes wrong with the tank, you got to bust out the wall to fix it. So if you have the space, you probably don't want that. And I said, look, I got a pretty big bathroom, and I don't want to call anybody and bust out the wall. So let's do the tanky ones. And so we eliminate those. It's fantastic. I'm like, oh my God, we're down to 3 toilets. It's so exciting. And so there's 3 toilets. And I'm like, which one should I buy? And the guy says, look, lady, I got to come clean with you. I work for Toto. So I'm going to tell you to pick the Toto one. But you can pick any one of these 3. They're all great toilets. But I work for Toto because I really believe in that product. You can go Google it, but if you just want to buy a toilet and never think about toilets again in your life until you're standing at the lean product meetup, but whatever, then, I would pick that one. And so like, so put my credit card down, buy the toilet. 10 minutes. 10 minutes. And I felt good about that purchase. I still do. It's been years. It's working great. So what happened there? Did he give me a pushy sales pitch? No, he wasn't giving me a pushy sales pitch. I didn't even twig that he wanted me to buy the Toto one until the very end. And 2, was he trying to explain, did he give me a feature walkthrough? He tried to explain every single feature of the toilet? No, because I didn't care. He did. He was actually acting not so much as a salesperson, but more like a guide. What he was giving me was a rubric so that I could confidently make the right decision for my situation. Now, I don't do this in software. How come we don't do this? We could do this. I know a lot of companies that do, but a lot of companies don't. And I think the main reason we don't do it is because we don't believe that customers want us to do it. So when I talk to people about this, often product-oriented CEO will say, well, look, like in order to do that, I'm kind of talking about my competitors. And nobody believes me. Like I don't have credibility to talk about my competitors. Like we're biased. Customers going to see that. And the other thing I'll get is like, look, we don't want to be seen as bashing our competitors. But did that guy bash the competitors? No, he didn't. We can do that. And so what's interesting about the data around that is this comes from a great study that they looked at enterprise B2B software buyers, and they asked them, what do you actually want in a sales pitch? Like when you go in and they're showing you the thing, you click on the button and says, give me a demo. What do you actually want? And the top 2 things are perspectives on the market, and I want to help navigating alternatives. Because I don't know what thing to buy. So I actually don't want to know just about you. I don't want to see all your features. I want to understand why your features matter. What I really want is the answer to the question, why you and not the other guys? And in order to answer that question, I kind of got to talk about the whole market. So the question is, how do we build a better product story? Like if that's what a customer wants, how do we build a story to answer that question? Why pick us over the alternatives? Now, I'm the positioning lady, so, obviously I think this starts with positioning. But let me make the case for that. Like, I think good positioning is the answer to that question. So good positioning defines who are the alternatives, how am I different than the alternatives, what's the value I can deliver that the alternative solutions cannot deliver, who's a good fit for my stuff, and what's the market I intend to win. Now, if you've heard me talk before, if you read my book, this is kind of my jam, is this positioning stuff. And so in the companies I work with, we get this cross-functional team together and we work through this. Like, if you didn't exist, what would a customer do? What have you got that the alternatives don't have? And we're going to translate that into value. So what's the value you can deliver for a customer that no other product can? And then you can go sell it to anyone, but who cares about it a lot? So who's a really good fit for your stuff? If I get a cross-functional team together and I got marketing, product, and sales together in the room, and we work through this, and I stop right there, everyone in the room's happy at the end of that. They all be like, "Hey, well, that was great. That was great." Everybody's all in agreement. We love it. We get where our competitors are. We get the value. Marketing is super happy. Marketing at this point can run off and go build campaigns. We know what our differentiated value is. We know what we're trying to beat out in the market. We know what our profile of great fit customer is. They can go off and do it. But you know what happens if we stop? If we just do this and we stop? Sales goes, "That's awesome. This is great. This is great." And they go back and they do the same pitch they always did. 15 drop-down menus. We're going to show you, talk through every single thing, blah, 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 blah. And I'll be like, what happened? And the reality is, nobody, or at least in all the companies I've worked with, and it's about 350 companies so far, only one has had a sales pitch that was built on a structure that wasn't just a product walkthrough. And so I got to thinking, all right, if we really want to make this positioning stick, we have to figure out how to make that positioning survive the jump from marketing to sales. We can't just do all this fancy positioning on the marketing side. The minute it hits sales, we just throw the positioning out the window and sales just, yapping about features and that's it. We actually have to translate this positioning into a sales pitch. So I'm going to show you the structure I use to do this. I'm sure there's other structures that work for this too. But I've been using this one for about 20 years-ish, give or take. So I'm going to explain what it is. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. So the way this sales pitch works is the pitch itself is divided into two parts. The first part I call the setup. The second part is called follow-through. The setup is where we're talking about the market. So this is where I'm giving you this rubric. Here's all the different ways you could solve the problem. And here's the pros and cons of different ways of doing it. Here's the trade-offs you're going to make. And then we switch over to, here's what we can do for you. And this we can do for you is really oriented around, not around our features, but around the value we can deliver for your business. The features are the how we deliver the value. So the opening part is split into 3 steps. So the first step is, you can kind of think of this as like your point of view in the market, or I'll call it the insight. It's a little bit different than starting with the problem. I know a lot of companies where they start with the problem. The problem with the problem is that, like, I used to work at this company and we started with the problem. We were selling a database and we started with the problem, and the problem is like, you know what the problem is? Too much data, man. You need a database to store that stuff. Well, all our competitors find the problem in the same way. So, and the customer's looking at me like I'm an idiot. I just lost all credibility. Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, data. Just get on with the freaking demo or whatever we're doing here. So I don't like the problem start, because I think generally the problem is too generic. And generally, any of your competitors solve the problem as well. So what we want is something unique to us. And the best way to do that is we start with our insight. It's why we built the thing we built. It's our differentiated point of view on the space. I'll give you an example. This will make more sense. Then once we've established that, then we're saying, look, you have choices. And all of these choices have pros and cons. Depending on what choice, you could choose these guys, great at this, bad for this, right? I could choose the cheap toilet, good for this, bad for this. I can choose the aesthetic toilet, good for this, bad for this, right? And then, based on that conversation, we are getting agreement with the client. We say, look, if we really understand this about the problem, and we really understand what works and doesn't work in the market for a customer like you, can we agree that a perfect solution would tick these boxes? And if the customer says, yeah, then I got him. Because I've already set that up, that I'm the only one that ticks those boxes. So now all I got to do is show how I tick the boxes. Let me give you an example. It makes more sense with an example. So here's a company I just worked with way back when. They're called Help Scout, and their positioning, I think, has taken a turn since this. So if you look at their website, it's not exactly this now, but they're a good example because it's easy to understand. So Help Scout does customer service software. So think Zendesk. Zendesk is their big competitors, the biggie in this space. Except these guys started out working with e-commerce businesses very specifically. So the difference with e-commerce businesses, like most of this help desk software was designed to take the cost out of servicing customers because, it's a cost center customer service. In e-commerce, we don't have salespeople and we don't have stores. So customer service is one of the only times we had to actually interact with the customer. And so what e-commerce businesses know and what Help Scout sort of discovered working with e-commerce businesses is we want to deliver a really amazing customer experience. If we can, then that improves basket size. They'll buy more stuff from you right there, and it'll improve customer loyalty and you get more repeat business. So they built their product specific for that, to deliver an amazing customer experience. Their competitors are kind of two categories. Either they're just doing a shared inbox, like support at whatever. It goes into a shared inbox and everybody decides who's going to work on what things. That works great when you're really small. But when you start getting bigger, what you want is like all these more advanced features. We want to prioritize the tickets. We want to be able to assign tickets to somebody. So that sort of thing. So then when you grow up, all that's left for you is this help desk software like Zendesk, which is amazing. It does all the things, but it was not designed to deliver an amazing experience. It was designed to get you the heck out of there. It was designed to push you to low touch channel. It doesn't call you John. It calls you ticket 142. Like, this is not a good experience, right? So we get there. So let me show you before and after on this pitch. Okay. So this is the product walkthrough pitch they were doing. So customer comes in and they're like, hey, e-commerce business, I'm going to show you all the features. So here we go. Here's how you log in. Here's the interface. Look, it just looks like a shared inbox. Isn't that great? Here's how you log in. Here's how you do prioritizations. Here's how you do workflows. Here's how you do assignments. Here's how you do another thing. Here's how you do another thing. Here's how you do another thing. And I keep going until I run out of time. Right? So I'm on the receiving end of this pitch. How's that different than a shared inbox? It kind of looks like a shared inbox. Does some other things, though. How's it different than Zendesk? It kind of does a bunch of stuff Zendesk does. Maybe Zendesk does more. Why would I pick this over anything else? I don't know. Doesn't answer that question. Now, let's do it my way. We start with the insight. So a person clicks on the thing. They come in. The sales rep comes in and says, hey, look, we're going to show you the demo. But before we get there, e-commerce business, we've worked with a lot of e-commerce businesses, thousands of them. And here's what we've seen. Customer service in e-commerce is different. And it's different because you don't have stores, and you don't have sales reps. And what we've seen and what the data supports is that if you deliver an amazing customer experience, this is a growth driver. So we should be looking at customer support like a growth driver, not a cost center. It's a growth driver. This is marketing. This is not expenses. And most of the e-commerce businesses they work with get that. They'll say, yeah, for sure. It is. Yeah, that's right. Okay, great. You got options. And here's what we've seen. Most of the companies we work with, they start with a shared inbox. It's great because it's really easy to use. Everybody knows how to use the inbox. And you've got these customer support people. They don't want something that's too difficult to use. So they can use it, and that's great. But then when you start growing, you want to do these other things. You need to do prioritization. It starts getting overwhelming with one shared inbox. So you want to do these other things. So then what you have to go to is help desk software. Now, here's the problem with help desk software. It wasn't designed for businesses like you. It was designed for businesses like T-Mobile. They're just trying to get rid of you in customer service. So it's designed to push you to a low-touch channel, even if that's not what you want. You are not John Smith. You are ticket number 148. So in a perfect world, if we really want to do customer service right for e-commerce business, wouldn't you want something that's as easy to use as an inbox, shared inbox, so your people can just use it, but it gives you all the bells and whistles of help desk software, so I don't have to migrate off of it every year. I could just grow up with you, and delivers this amazing customer experience. Doesn't give you a stupid ticket number. Allows the person to pick the channel that they want to interact with you with. Wouldn't that be the perfect thing? Isn't that what we want? Now, the customer has choice here. The customer either says, yeah, or no. So if the customer leans in and says, well, yeah, of course. Who doesn't want that? Then I go to the follow through. And I say, great, let me show you how we do that. So this is just like the product walkthrough, except I'm oriented around differentiated value, and I'm going to show you the features in the context of the value the features deliver. So I'm going to stick to those 3 points. First one, easy to use is a shared inbox. Look at that. Looks like a shared inbox. All your people are going to show up here. Super easy to use. Just no problem. Get them up. Most of our folks switched our stuff. They're up and running in a day or two. Second thing, advanced features that grow up with you. I could show you whatever ones you want. Which ones are you interested in? We got prioritization, workflow, whatever. We work with 1,000 e-commerce businesses. Here's our customer list. We got what you need. Don't worry about that. We have all the advanced features. And the last one is this amazing experience where I'm going to give you a ticket. Customer gets to choose the channel. So the bulk of the pitch is here. This setup bit, when Help Scout does it, is like, if we have a 45-minute call, that setup bit takes 6 minutes. The rest is this. But the setup bit, if you miss it, kills all the context of this. I don't know why these things matter. So I'm doing insight, alternatives, perfect world, and then I switch to this thing. Let me give you one more. Oh, let me do the sales pitch for my own stuff. I wrote a book. It explains all this stuff, whatever. If you want the positioning stuff, it's the orange one. If you want the sales pitch thing, it's the white one. Let me give you another example, because I think the examples make this thing, and then we'll switch to question. So I like this example because the company got acquired, and, it's hard talking about sales pitches because the companies don't want me to use their sales pitch as an example because they don't want their competitors to know how they're boxing them out. But these guys got acquired by Salesforce, so now I can say whatever I want. And I just had lunch with the guy, and I said, look, I'm going to use you all over. He's like, fine. So this company, again, I worked with them a couple of years ago, but they're called Level Jump, and they're in the sales enablement space. Anybody in that space? Terrible space. Oh my God, so bad. Like it's so competitive, and all the competitors have like hundreds of millions of VC dollars. Like it's a bloodbath, this space. So this guy goes into there and he's bootstrapper. So he's raised like $1 million, and all his competitors have raised like hundreds of millions of dollars. Anyways, we went in to do a positioning exercise. So we started with the positioning. And so here's what he's got. He's competing against kind of 3 categories of competitors. So when the companies are small, so what sales enablement software does is you get a new sales rep and they need to get trained. And so you need to get them up to speed, or maybe you do a new release, and you got to train all the reps. So sales enablement software is all about training your sales rep. So he's got this sales enablement software. Who he competes with is, when the companies are really small, they just put the sales enablement stuff on a shared drive. Works fine, it's free, whatever, point the sales reps at it, get the stuff there. Then they get a little more sophisticated. They've got 2 choices. They can either do a content management system, essentially, that does version control, and you can see who's getting what, and it just makes sure the salespeople are getting the right stuff and they're not using the wrong stuff. Or if you're going to get really fancy, you've got a LMS, which is learning management system, and I can set up a course, and I can see how far you made it through the course, and you can get certified and all that stuff. So that's their competitor. We do the positioning thing, and they really don't have a lot that's differentiating against these other big competitors. However, they have one key thing. They're the only one that's built on top of Salesforce. I'm like, okay, so what? What's the value of that? And it was an interesting conversation. Like, the initial things we talked about were just not that valuable. Like, somebody said, well, all the other ones you have to go out and log into another system. And so this one you can just stay inside of Salesforce. And I'm like, is that valuable? Like, that takes 10 seconds. Don't they log into other things? Yeah, but they really like Salesforce. I'm like, have you talked to a salesperson ever? Nobody likes it. Anyway, so, but then the founder finally pipes up and says, well, you know what the real thing is here? Because we're built on top of Salesforce, we have shared data. So because we have shared data, we can actually tell you, does the sales enablement improve things that we can measure in the sales data? So did the sales enablement program improve time to first deal or time to make quota? That's what we really care about in sales enablement. Like, did it speed everything up? So again, let's look at the two pitches. There's old pitch. Old pitch is, okay, come on in. Here's how we log on. Here's how we put the training in there. Here's how the reps access the training. When they access the training, you can set up a course. It looks like this. Here's how they work through the course. Blah, 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 blah. It's all inside Salesforce. Blah, 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 blah. And then at the very, very, very end, if they made it there, which lots of times they didn't, at the very end, they would say, here's how you measure the results. How are they different than anybody else? They don't sound different than anybody else. It's the same stuff everybody else says. Is it answering the question? Why pick us over the other guys? No. So then we re-architect it. It looks like this. So the person clicks on the thing and they come in and they're like, okay, we're here for the demo. And say, yeah, we're going to get to the demo. But first, they're selling to the head of sales enablement at a tech company. So they come in and they're like, okay, head of sales enablement. You know sales enablement is important. Yeah, dummy, that's my job. Okay. Why is sales enablement so important? Because every day your rep's not making quota costs you money. That's why it's important. And they had all these neat statistics from their own customers that they could show if you had this many sales reps and you improved it by 2 weeks or whatever, you saved this much money. So they had this nice little graphic where they could show you how much money. But that's the insight. Every day your rep's not making quota costs money, right? Now look, you got lots of ways to solve this problem. You can put everything on a shared drive. That's great. That's free. That's easy. But no version control. It's hard. So I could go to a CMS and put everything in there. I get nice version control. If I'm being really fancy and do LMS, I can tell who's taken what and how many courses they took, and they're certified on the thing. You know what none of these things do? When your boss asks you, did the sales enablement stuff work? What's your answer? How do you improve the impact of your work? We want that, right? Like, in a perfect world, wouldn't we be able to measure the impact with sales metrics? And then I know what's working and what isn't working. So then I can take the things that are working, double down on the stuff that's working, and forget about the stuff that's not working. We want that, right? Of course we do. Now let me show you how we do that. And so instead of taking you on this long journey of all these things that I do that every single one of my competitors also do, I'm going to spend the time talking about the thing that makes me different and the reason you want to buy me. So here's what you want. Measure the impact of sales enablement with sales metrics. Oh, look, here's how we track time to make quota. Here's how we track time to first deal, time to whatever. Here's how we improve the onboarding to sell more faster. Here's how we show what's working and what isn't working. And here's how we improve it. So these guys started using this. Revenue went like this. They got acquired by Salesforce. Everybody's rich. The end. So here's a handful of things, and then we'll go to questions. Yeah. Yep. This is also stock photo, if you can believe that. Why is he doing that? Anyway, so there's a handful of things to think about if you're going to do this. One is sales need to be involved. You would be very surprised at the number of companies that try to have marketing build the sales pitch, or even have product build the sales pitch, and then just kind of heave it over the sales team, and then the sales team hates it, and then everybody cries. And they're like, sales team didn't like it. Why are they such jerks? They hate my beautiful work. And the reason is that it doesn't do things that sales needs to do. So a lot of times you have somebody building a sales pitch that doesn't know how to do discovery, has never sat through a discovery call, doesn't know how to do qualification properly, doesn't know what the reps know about objection handling, all this other stuff that the reps actually do. So we need the reps involved. In the work that I do, we get the sales team involved in the positioning work so that they understand the positioning. And then when we do the translation to the sales pitch, they're there for that as well. And then we have marketing and sales sit down together and build the actual pitch, deck, demo, script, so that we're sure that it works for the sales team. I would never throw it over and just throw it to the sales team and say, have at it. This is the surest way to have this thing fail. If you've worked with a sales team, even if the entire sales team is complaining about the pitch, if you give them a new one, the new one is bad and the old one is good. Because they're comfortable with the old one. They get their timing all work out. They have the little joke they tell at the end of slide 3. Like, so you give them the new pitch, and new pitch is hard. Like, it's like, oh, it's changed, like a thing. So if you throw it over, they might be excited for the first week or two. 3-4 weeks later, don't be surprised. They're all using the old sales pitch, and they're like, yeah, that new pitch sucks. The way you get around this is you pick one rep, your best rep, not just anybody, your best rep. Take your best rep, you train them on the new pitch, and you make them do all kinds of practice on it internally. Then you send them out to do pitches on qualified prospects, and after every pitch, you tune it. So you come back. So I used to sit on these calls. Me and my key sales rep were testing it. We do the pitch. At the end of the pitch, we come back and we're like, oh, okay, the guy was looking like this. At this, I think he got confused on this. We need to fix this. Oh, this word doesn't work. This slide, we need to take it from the back and bring it, and we tune it. Then we go do it again. And we go back and forth until the magic moment where my best sales rep looks at me and says, I'm sick of you sitting in all my calls. We're done. I think this pitch is as good as it's getting. And importantly, the sales rep says the magic words, this is better than the old pitch. I'm using this one now, which they will only do after they're comfortable with it. Once you've got that, now I can make a recording of that sales pitch doing that thing. Now I can use that salesperson, and I have sales training sales instead of marketing trying to train sales, which never in the history of marketing has ever worked, ever. So here's the third thing, if it fails, so if you do that test and it doesn't work better than the old pitch, and it's not because the rep wasn't familiar with it, and it's not because we didn't get enough training on it or whatever, if it fails, it is probably not the pitch that's the problem. It is the positioning that informed the pitch that is the problem. So it's usually your value is not strong enough. You're not hitting the value good enough. You got to go back to the drawing board on the positioning. And then the last one is the pitch should only change when the positioning changes. So we shouldn't be monkeying around with the pitch. Most of the companies that I work with, they certify everybody on the pitch, and they certify them again in the next quarter, and they certify them again in the next quarter. And they're making sure that everyone's doing this first call in a very standard way, and they're not off having 9,000 pitches there. Second call, third call, fourth call, we could do whatever we want. Those are very custom. But first call, when we're trying to do discovery, we don't know that much about a client. That needs to be very standard, and it shouldn't change unless the positioning changes, and then we have to go back and retool the pitch. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. So yeah. Okay, I'm done. Trust it.
All right. Thank you very much, April, for an awesome talk. The way we do questions here is you have to have a mic in order to have the question. Otherwise, it won't be on the video.
Otherwise, you can't do it
on the video. Exactly. So we have people, just raise your hand. Oh, there you go. There you go.
Oh, yeah, he's first now. He's got
Take care.
burning question.
Great talk. I wanted to ask was, who should own the design of the pitch and rolling it out? Because I've seen different tensions. And basically, who's the quarterback who will then orchestrate the rest of it?
Yeah. So here's what I think. So again, like, we need to have this cross-functional team that's working on the positioning. And in my opinion, that same team should work on what I would call the storyboard for the pitch, not the actual design of the slides or the demo or whatever, the storyboard. Like, at the level that I showed you those examples, here's how step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, this is the arc of the pitch, like this. And then in my experience, it works very well if we have a combination of sales and marketing, unless you got a weird structure and there's something else. So sometimes you've got a big sales enablement team, and that sales enablement team is going to interface between sales and marketing, and they're going to help do the pitch. Sometimes you've got product, the thing is difficult to demo, but we want a demo. So product management is going to have to build the demo, and they're going to have to be, but it's usually not just sales, just marketing, just product. It's usually a cross-functional thing. No matter what combination we have, sales has to be involved, but it's usually sales and other things. And so, Now once you have it and you've validated it, like you've tested it, it's validated, then usually it lives over in whoever runs sales enablement. So if you have a separate sales enablement team, they're like the police for this pitch. So they own certifying the reps, certifying the stuff, making sure everybody's doing everything, checking in on it, blah, blah, blah. If you don't have a sales enablement team, then it's whoever has that responsibility. Sometimes product marketing, sometimes it's a combination of things, but whoever owns enabling the sales team, if it's somebody in sales, then it goes there. If it's somebody in marketing, then it goes there. So it was not unusual in the early stage companies I worked at. I owned that, and I was the vice president of marketing. But in the later stage, bigger businesses, we had a whole team that did that. And so once we all got good on what the pitch should look like, that team owned it.
Yeah, for complex products, including AI products, I've seen product management play a key role there to educate. But then product marketing has a role to play there as well.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the key things, that if you have a product marketing team and senior people in product marketing, building the pitch is a key part of what they do. But again, it depends. Not everybody's got product marketing, and not everybody's got senior enough people in product marketing to actually own this stuff. So it depends. Oh, yeah.
Hi, thank you so much for that. My question is around, how do you identify your differentiated value, especially if like on a feature level, there's not a lot of difference. And especially if you're not the dominant player, you are a challenger.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of identify what differentiates you?
So this comes back to how I think people should work on positioning. So when I started doing this work, I quickly came to the conclusion that if I just tried to do positioning in the marketing department and I cooked up some differentiated value that I thought would work, it never worked because everybody else on the executive team disagreed with me. So sales would come and say, nope, that doesn't work. Or the founder would come and say, no, that's not it. Or product management would come and say, everybody does that. That's not different. So we had this big fight about it. And so then I thought, okay, well, we're going to have to do this cross-functionally, right? Sales sees the customer in the purchase journey. Product knows a lot about alternatives and what makes us different in the product at the feature level. Marketing knows about what gets people jazzed and into the funnel. The founder, if the founder's still there, the CEO, has this completely different perspective on the insight, like the point of view. Why did we build this thing the way we built it in the first place? And so I figured if we get everybody together in the room, then we can pull on all that institutional knowledge and come up with something that's really good. But here's the problem. If I get everybody together in the room and there's no structure to that discussion, then it just becomes a free-for-all. So then everybody comes in the room and somebody will stand up and say, here's why I think everyone loves our stuff. It's because our sales team's amazing, right? The sales guy. It's because we're so fun to hang out with. We're just great. Or a service would say, it's our service. It's amazing. We just do amazing customer service. And I'll be like the marketing person. I'm like, oh yeah? Did they experience the service before they bought it? What about it? And the answer is no. So they clearly didn't buy it for that. I mean, I appreciate you on the churn side of the house, but maybe not on the new customer logo. So that was the problem, right? I get everybody together and there's all this bias. Everybody comes with all their baggage. Everybody's got their little opinion. So doing it this way was the only way I could come up with to try and take the opinions out of it. So it starts with this. We're like, forget about value for the moment. If we didn't exist, what would a customer do? That's a very specific phrasing of that question, right? If we didn't exist, what would the customer do? Half the time, the answer to that question is they do it in a spreadsheet. They do it with interns. They do it with pen and paper. That's what they do. Now, if you go and ask your sales rep, who do we compete with? That's not the answer they're going to give you, right? Your sales rep's going to say, we compete with Oracle because I lost a deal to Oracle last week, right? So that's what they're going to tell you. So we need a way to pull this stuff out. So if I say, if we didn't exist, what would we do? I'll say, what's status quo in the account that we're replacing? It's pen and paper. It's some legacy garbage. It's manual process, whatever it is. Okay, let's write that down on the board. Okay, when we're in a deal and they've decided they're going to do something different, who lands on a short list against us? That is a very short list of companies. Now, if I go to product management and say, who do we compete with? Product management will give me, literally it happens every time I do one of these things, product management gives me 100 competitors. 100 competitors. And then I say, okay, now look, I get it, because you're worried about the roadmap. And a lot of these competitors might give us pain at some point in the future. But today, right now, they don't even show up on our short list. They're ghost as far as the customer is concerned. Customer doesn't know them. They don't end up on a short list. They are causing us zero pain. We don't have to position against them. In fact, we can ignore them completely from a positioning perspective until they start showing up in our deals. And they start showing up in our deals, we're going to adjust the positioning to account for that. And you know what? 90% of the time, they never show up in your deals. Ever. So then we get this stake in the ground. Now I've got, here's status quo, here's what my actual competition is. Right? So if I started with differentiated value and said, what have we got that's different? Oh, your product manager will say, nothing. We have nothing. And I'll say, really? You have nothing? Nothing. What about our fancy AI thing? I know a company down the road. There are 3 guys in a basement and they do that too. So we got nothing. And I'm like, but you never see them in a deal. Customer doesn't know about them. So your thing counts. You don't need to be the only company on the planet that has a thing. You just have to differentiate from status quo and the things that land on a short list. That's it. It's actually a really small universe of companies because a customer is not putting 9,000 things on a short list. And so it's you versus Oracle versus whatever. That's it. So once I narrow that competitive set down, then all of a sudden I got all kinds of differentiators is usually what happens. So now we've got this, now we usually have a bunch of things. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes the list is still pretty small. But here's the thing. If the company is in market and has traction and is growth, then it means that every single day, a customer is comparing you to the other alternatives and choosing you. Maybe you don't know why, but they do it, right? So there's differentiation there somewhere. You need to figure out what it is. Now, if you're a brand new product and you've never really sold anything except your cousin Louie and your mom, like maybe you don't have any differentiation. Or if you used to have differentiation and now all the numbers are going like this or things are flat or whatever, maybe you don't have any differentiation. But I literally hear this, we have no differentiation thing. The last time I heard it, the company was 75 million revenue and growing at 40%. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Every day they pick you. Every day they pick you. You did 100 deals last quarter. What do you mean you have no differentiation? Of course no differentiation. Why are they picking you? And, once we got the folks together in the room, it was stuff that people inside the company were almost discounting it. But it was super, super important to customers. So it was like, it wasn't fancy enough. It wasn't complicated enough. Oh, yeah, well, that took us like a week to build. Anyone could build it. Yeah, but nobody did. Nobody did. Nobody's done it yet, right? So it's that kind of stuff. So a lot of times when people say we don't have any differentiation, it's a bit of a red herring. Like it's actually not true. Now, sometimes I'm sure it is true, right? Like you've got a thing and everybody caught up to you and now you're whatever. But sometimes the differentiation is a thing that people think doesn't count. Like our pricing model is different. They pick us for that. We have professional services. No one else does. Big companies want professional services. Their products are the same, but we serve them better. So that's why they pick us. Or, we integrate to a whole bunch of systems that they don't integrate with, and they need that. So that's why they pick us. Like, it could be anything, but you need to actually go through this process and figure it out. Anyways, I hope that helps. Bring an article.
Got a microphone here.
What's that?
Thank you for the amazing talk, April, and thank you for mentioning me so many times in your talk. My name is John.
You feel the pain. You're like, I'm going to make this decision. Pick it on me.
Yeah. I'm gonna bring a little bit differentiation from that lady there. I have a very unique case here. I work for Stanford startup. I sell some of the most cutting edge AI service in the world. Currently exists in the Silicon Valley and the world for sure. And I work with some of my enterprise clients. The problem is not even my clients understand what they are looking for. So we are like Steve Jobs in the Silicon Valley, and we're educating our client. And how, in your way, what would be the most, comfortable way of extracting this information from different levels of executives, directors, TPM, PMs, designers, from these enterprise customers of what features that they're truly looking for? What is actually the driver in this sales pitch?
Are you selling stuff? Do you have customers now?
Yeah, I'm having customers. Some of the biggest.
How many? Like 2? Or
4. We have 4.
Okay.
Yeah, and those are like at the level of NVIDIA, approximately that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, see, here's the thing. Like, the problem in the really early stages, right, when you just have a handful of customers, it's hard to see the patterns because there's only 4, right? And so what you're trying to, in this positioning exercise, what you're trying to position around is the general case of, these kind of people love us for this reason. And then it's easy to build a roadmap on that, right? Like, so, this is what we do to double down on that. Or if you have a roadmap that says, we're going to serve this market, and then we're going to go to this market, and then we're going to go to this market, we build a roadmap for that. But at the beginning, if you don't even know where you're landing, right, where the beachhead market is, then it's kind of hard to figure that out. And so in the early stages of a company, from a positioning perspective, what I think you have is a positioning thesis, or at least you should, right? So the original product was built on a thesis. And the thesis said, this is who I think the alternatives are. This is what we think makes us different. Therefore, this is the value we can deliver no one else can. And these are the kind of customers that are going to love us. But the first wave of customers, like the 4 that you've got, and probably the next handful, are really about validating that thesis. So did it work out the way we thought? So, we predicted that this kind of customer was going to love us. Do they? Like, when we pitched them, are they excited? And do they love us for the reasons that we thought they were going to love us? So I would be, at your stage, I think what would be really interesting, rather than asking them what features they want or trying to figure that out, it'd be interesting to do more of like a jobs to be done kind of interview with them to find out, what's the progress they're trying to make? What's the job they're trying to accomplish? And is that job the same across the 4, or is it different? And then you would develop, I think, maybe a new thesis on, well, maybe the positioning should be like this to satisfy that job, but then I would still have to validate it with the next wave of customers.
So it's an experimentation process.
Kind of, yeah.
Of course.
And so what's so awkward about this phase is what everybody wants is this really tight sales pitch and this really tight story, but you don't have it yet because you don't know where to tighten it up. Like, here's my terrible analogy. I don't know if it's the only one I've got, but it's like you're fishing experts and you decide you're going to build a net. And the thesis is, I got a net and it's the world's most amazing tuna fishing net. That's my thesis, right? But if I go to market with that and say, I put up the website that says tuna fishing nets are us, right? And the tuna fishermen buy the net. Maybe it doesn't work, right? Because we haven't actually validated that. So a better way to do it would be to say internally, our thesis is tuna fishing, right? But let's just put the thing up and say, you know what? We got a net. It's for fish. All kinds of big fish, man. I don't know what kind of fish. And then let's just see, and then we spread the thing around, get a whole bunch of customers using it. Let's just see what the fishermen pull up, right? And then maybe what happens is they pull it up and they're like, grouper. Like, we weren't even thinking about grouper. We didn't know nothing about grouper. But now we know we're the grouper people. Then I can narrow it down and say, okay, I'm going after the grouper market. Maybe I'll go get the tuna fishermen later. So you're in the phase now where it's like, how do we tighten up this position? We don't know, because we don't have a really great answer for who do we compete with, how are we different, what's the value they only get from us. So I would say every time you land a deal, you really want to be doing this win analysis, right? Who do they compare us to? Well, what were they using before? What did they replace with us? Who are they comparing us to? How did they make a short list? When they did make the short list, why are we on it? Why are those folks on it? Why do they pick us? importantly, why not the other guys? Because sometimes you win the deal because the other guys mess it up, right? So why not the other guys? And then now that you have it and you're using it, is there anything surprising that you wish you had known in the, in the marketing sales process or whatever? But I would be maybe thinking about jobs interviews. That's kind of a job style interview that I would do. So every time you win one of these deals, you're trying to squeeze them for all the information about use the 4 and try and figure out how to get the next 4.
I get it. That's a lot of clue in this answer. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have the second mic.
Oh my God, they're coming from all over.
Thank you so much for being
Yeah, he
here.
was waving at me halfway through example number 1. He's like, I'm like,
I didn't know. I was early on the mic.
Yeah.
Could you go to the Help Scout slide?
yeah. This one?
Yeah. So Help Scout, if you look at some of the businesses, in the narrative that you told was about e-commerce. Nothing about this site talks about e-commerce.
We're not talking about copywriting here. So if what you're going to say is the copy on the homepage is wrong, or nothing here says anything about e-commerce.
No. Well, I guess
none of their campaigns drive to the homepage.
Okay. Well, I have a question here. So
all our campaigns drive to a landing page like good marketers should.
So if Mixmax comes on a call, right, and Olaf gets on that call and he is not at all in e-commerce, and the sales rep presumably starts with discovery.
He'd be pre-qualified. So I'm talking about first pitch is generally to a qualified prospect. So anybody that gets to first pitch has already been qualified.
Okay, so
we haven't done discovery, but we've done qualification. So if they don't meet the basic qualification criteria, they're not e-commerce.
And they don't get on a call. They don't get on a call. Okay. So can you go to the next slide? Sorry, your one where you talk about the process for Help Scout specifically. Okay. So
this one?
Yeah, the insight. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So basically, if a company comes in here, they are an e-commerce company, and the discovery has been done ahead of the insight.
Non-discovery, qualification.
Oh, qualification. Okay.
Do discovery in this call. And specifically, I didn't talk about this, but I can talk about it now. Specifically, we do discovery here. So typically what's happened in most of the enterprise businesses that I've worked with, there's qualification and there's discovery. These are two different things. Marketers are very bad at understanding the difference. Salespeople get very mad when you don't understand the difference. I have been on the receiving end of this rant many, many times in my life. So let me rant it for you. So usually we have qualification criteria, do they have the budget? Is this a problem we can solve? Basic stuff. But we're doing that on this literally 10-minute call. It is zero value to the customer. Customer doesn't want to be on this call. Nobody wants on this call. Some people do it with a form. Some people, like they're really sophisticated, do it with like really sophisticated, are they consuming this content or that content? And I know who you are. But somehow they've been qualified. And then we have booked this meeting. In the meeting, first call, we've done qualification. We've not yet done discovery. Right. So discovery is where we find out whether systems do you have, what's the system you're using right now, what are the things have you tried, do you have some hard requirements like a security thing or something that we don't know about. So we have all these things, and we don't know that until we do discovery. Most sales pitches that marketing builds, when it goes over to the rep, there's no specific step in the slides to do discovery. Yep. So most of the time what the reps will do is they'll do discovery before they start this pitch, which in my opinion is a terrible way to do it. So instead, in this pitch, the way my companies do it is we start with this insight. So how the pitch would actually look if you were my client is I'd say, look, okay, e-commerce person, buyer person, we have this point of view. And now with e-commerce businesses, this is a growth driver instead of a cost center. And so what we see, and they have a slide that shows a bunch of data that they've gathered around. If you deliver really amazing customer experience, here's the revenue impact in that. If you deliver shit customer experience, here's the revenue impact on that. And then you were starting a conversation. Do you agree with this? Now, if the customer's like, then we're kind of disqualifying them here, right? If they're a bit like, no, we don't buy it. Now we actually see it as a cost center. We just kind of want to throw them to the FAQ. Like, can you help us do that? They will disqualify that prospect because they can't do that job better than Zendesk.
Yeah.
And so then we get to this alternatives section. And that alternatives section is a really good place to do discovery because it says, look, this is what we see. Do you agree? Does this match what's going on in your company? So are you using a shared inbox? What are you using? Have you tried anything else? Are you looking at anything else? You guys looking at Zendesk? Are you looking at any help desk software? Oh, we're looking at blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they're help desk software. Let me put baby in the corner. They sit right here, right? So we're doing that discovery in that step, typically. I don't know if this is your question.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So basically you start off with the insight, which is a kind of a form of qualification or disqualification.
It's actually not. Like what we're doing in the insight step is I'm framing the discussion.
Yeah.
And I'm framing it around a thing that right from the very start points at my value. So notice how I didn't say the problem with customer service is it's too expensive.
Yeah.
I didn't frame it that way, right? I'm framing the whole discussion from the opening beat to say, you care about customer service because it's going to improve your revenue, right?
Yes.
So I'm just throwing that out right at the beginning because that's our point of view on the market. And if you don't agree with that, we are going to probably disqualify you in this. But let's see. Now, sometimes you'll throw that stuff out and, by the time you get later on, they've warmed up to the idea and they go, oh, yeah. But usually what you get, like with the other guys with Level Jump, like this idea that, we care about sales enablement because every day your rep's not making quota costs you money. Like it's very rare, but they told me, I said, does anybody ever get to the end of that little speech and say, no, we don't want that. We don't want to show our boss the impact of our business. And he says, oh yeah, we've had it twice. And both times it was people that are terrible at their job. They don't want their boss to know. They're scared of that. So they disqualify them. They like the other stuff better because they can't tell. Okay.
Makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Anyway.
Appreciate it.
So actually, that's the slide I wanted you to pull up. So perfect.
Okay.
Then, when you walk through the slide, you said at the end when I described the perfect world, the customer has two options, right? Number one is they can agree.
Yeah.
And we went down that branch.
Yeah.
But
number two, they're like,
they can disagree. They go,
oh,
no,
man.
it's not perfect world.
Yeah.
Or how do you handle it? Do you directly disqualify? Do you extend perfect world? Is it also an opportunity for discovery?
Yeah. So usually we're trying to do discovery in here, right? So in this step, I'm asking them my traditional discovery questions, like, what are you using now? Are you using other things? What have you tried before? What other things are you looking at? And they'll be like, oh, well, we looked at this, but we couldn't do because of that. Oh, is there a requirement for that? What are the requirements? Blah, blah, blah. So you'd be having that thing. And then if you get to this thing where you're like, look, like, don't we think that perfect looks like this? The customer might be like, kinda, right? Like, I like those first two. I don't know about the last one, right? Well, I'll be like, let me convince you, right? So I'm going to show you how we do this. I'm going to show you a customer case study. I'm going to show you some stuff if I try to convince you. If the customer is hell yeah, then, we got them. Deal's ours to lose. But if the customer gets to the end and says, I really disagree with that. Like, no. Which it's rare, actually, if you do this well. But then I think you're essentially disqualified. The rep has two choices at that point. Like, so the rep can keep pushing, but there's no point in showing them a demo. None. Because they're like, I don't care about your value. And you're like, let me show you how we deliver that value. Like, yeah, but I don't care about that. So what is the point of showing a demo at this point? There's no point. So if I've got, the head of sales enablement, says, well, I don't know, I kind of like having an LMS because I like having the courses and I like all that stuff. And I'm like, oh, yeah, we're still going to do that. But we're going to do that. Plus, we're going to show how it fixes these sales metrics, which is really important to you because you got to prove to your boss whether this thing works. And it's really important for you to like continuously improve on your stuff. They might go, and if they're like that, I mean, you can keep on going. But if it was me, I'd be like, you know what? I don't think we're the best thing for you. Takes a lot of guts to say that. But most of the time what you've got is if they disagree, they don't flat out disagree. But if you don't have them, you feel it at that step. But they'll say, they won't say no, but they'll be, and these people are not going to make it past the first call. You might get to the end of the first call, but they're not going to make it past the first call. Now, if you're getting that a lot, your pitch is shit. And you need to go back and fix it. That's it, though, right? Like, if you're getting it here and you're not getting enthusiastic yes out of your good fit customers, then there's some in the story that doesn't land. You need to go back to the position. Like, something's wrong with your differentiated value. It's not resonating with these people. And so that's what you're looking for in the test phase of this. We get to test phase and we're not getting lots of enthusiastic, like, yeah, of course. Like, what you should get is people saying, yeah, dummy, show me the thing already. Like, yeah, of course we want that. The idiots, we didn't want it. Like, if you're not getting that kind of reaction and the pitch is bad, you need to go back to the positioning and retool the positioning. There's something wrong in the differentiated value. It's just not compelling. Usually that's what it is. Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned earlier, obviously in the very beginning, it's hard because you don't know who might be the best fit customers, or you mentioned...
At the beginning of the company, we've only sold a couple of deals and we don't really know, like, yeah.
But another pattern I've seen very often is sales, when they're under pressure to meet quota, they will sell, even if it's not best fit.
For sure. And then they'll turn on you later and they'll say, no, my problem.
Right. So in your template, where would you sort of catch, they made a sale despite objections, despite recognizing that this is not a good fit customer.
Yeah.
Because in your sequential, the value was came first.
Two places. So, and again, it depends on, like, the more enterprisey the deal is, the longer it takes to close it, right? So you're talking about multiple sales conversations. Usually, you know, if we've got reps that are very talented reps at getting a deal cooking, you know, it'll become obvious in conversation number 2, conversation number 3. And usually by then, other people in the company are getting involved. So you might have a sales engineer that's getting involved. That deal is going to start showing up on the weekly pipeline review. And a good vice president of sales is going to say, how the frick did you qualify those guys? What are they doing on the list? They're not in their ICP. Why are you working on this deal? And get them out of there.
Actually, what I wanted to also ask you...
If you don't have good sales management, then all the wheels come right off the bus on this stuff. Like,
So it's a real pattern that sales happens, customer gets onboarded, and then they face problems realizing value, and therefore retention and sentiment suffers later. So much after 1 year later, they don't renew and all of that. So my question really was, there's an opportunity to go back and refine the pitch based on the learnings from what actually happened. So in your sequential flow, they had those 5 or 6 stages.
yeah.
I feel there needs to be a back and forth between the value and the best fit customer and what the learning is, so that you have to pitch, you have to modify the pitch to make sure that you're learning from the segments.
As you're learning, yeah.
Right.
Like, so I think that's a really important point. Like, in the early stages of a company, it's kind of like what I was saying. Like, in the early stages, we can't necessarily see the patterns, right? And who loves our stuff and why? Like, what's the value we can deliver that no one else can and why? And so, which is why I think you really need to go and do this win analysis. Like, every time you win one, you need to understand what was happening. Now, you should understand, after the thing is implemented and done and whatever else, did we actually deliver on the promise? Because that's kind of important, right? So if we get downstream, we promised them all this stuff and then we didn't actually deliver, or we promised them all this stuff and they implemented and they got value, it just wasn't what we said, it was this different value, then yeah, that's got to make it back in. But you're like, that's a really early stage thing when the positioning, in my opinion, is still not hardened. Like, you're still, what I would say you're doing is testing the thesis. And so in that phase, I would expect a lot of thrashing on the positioning. Like, I'm sitting on a board right now of a product that a company that I've known the founder for a long time, really early stage. They've got a handful of customers, but he's probably adjusted the positioning 6 times in the last 6 months. And he's not done yet, because we're still trying to figure out what exactly is the value, who's it for. He's switched his ICP twice. So he thought he was selling to companies that looked like this. He tried to do it, and it didn't really work the way he thought it was. So we had to go back to the drawing board, new positioning thesis, tested that. It kind of worked, but not totally. So we had an adjustment on the thesis. Now he's trying to sell to a slightly different ICP, and that's looking a lot more promising. So at the beginning, it looks like that. It's not. But then, once you're in market and you're selling and you're 10 million revenue, 20 million revenue, it's usually more about refining it and getting really tight on it so that it's really easy for a customer to understand why pick you over the other guys. But at the beginning, it's thrashing. You're going to thrash a lot on this because you're not exactly sure who the best ICP is. You're not exactly sure who the best fit customer is. You're not exactly sure on the value, like you say. And so you would expect a lot of flopping around. I call pre-product market fit, but I don't believe in product market fit. But if I did, I would call it that. Yeah.
All right. We have a question from Zoom here. Amanda asks, she said she did your exercise about a month ago and it's been great. She says,
don't say it like that, and it's been great.
Okay, you ready? Okay, I'll say exactly what she said.
But there's a big but.
No. And it has truly been the gift that keeps on giving! Exclamation point.
That's better. That's better.
We're in product management, we downsell things.
Said it was
she wasn't differentiated from anything else.
Those guys do it too.
All right, her question kind of gets to the same thing a little bit. It's like, at what point, if this happens, it sounds like if it happens, learnings from the positioning and sales pitch creation journey cause you to say, okay, we actually might need to build something new here.
Yeah, that happens a lot. So a lot of times, so there's, I'll tell you something. There's a couple of places where we might have a bit of an epiphany moment as we're working through this on positioning stuff. So one is we get really tight on this value, and like we kind of thought the value was this, and then we realized the value is actually really this. And it's not a big change, but it's a change. And so often the product team will then be like, oh, if that's what we do, God, we could build these 3 little easy things that would make that value even stronger. Why haven't we built that? So there'll be this clarity on this is what the value is. We could build some things that would really make that really good. The other one we'll get is this best fit customer one. Like usually what we've got is the company's been selling to a much wider range of customers than what we define in this positioning exercise. So I'll give you an example. I was working with this company and they sell this appointment setting software. And so we went through this exercise and their value was all around doing online appointment setting when there's a lot of complexity. So think, I'm trying to make an appointment with a financial advisor, but I want one in my neighborhood that has a specialization in small business and blah, 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 of this size, blah, blah, blah. So I put in my criteria and it matches you with someone who's really good at that. And so we got to this set of value props around that. And then we said, well, who cares a lot about that? Well, if you don't have that complexity, like agents with, multiple areas of specialization, multiple types of products, multiple locations, then all their stuff is kind of meaningless. And so they were trying to do appointment setting for drugstores where you could walk in and get your makeup done or something, and they had none of that. It was like, why are you trying to sell their drugstore? So they were asking the question like, well, who's your best fit customer? And they had done a lot of deals in financial services, but the thing that came out was we could just do financial services and make the number. In fact, we'd probably kill the number. It could be so much easier. And so they ended up really focusing down for the next 3 years. They only sold to credit unions. And so, so once they decided, well, we're selling to credit unions, they built a bunch of stuff that was little and easy to ship that made it really sing for credit unions. And then, they spent the next 3 years just focusing on that. They're only now puffing out beyond credit unions into, these specialized financial services companies and doing stuff beyond that. So it's quite common that we get in this and it sparks a bunch of ideas. It's not in the realm of my work to try to figure out what that stuff might be, but it's not that often that you get the group together, a cross-functional team, right? Marketing, sales, product, founder CEO together talk about this stuff, it's kind of natural that it might spark some ideas like, hey, maybe we could build this thing. Hey, maybe we could do that.
Sounds great. Makes sense.
The other thing you get sometimes is the oh shit moment. So the oh shit moment is when you go all the way through this thing and you get down to best fit customers, and the best fit customer, like the customers that really, really love this stuff, is like a very small segment, and you have a very big number to make. And then you're like, oh shit, then we need to fix something in product.
Great. Another question from Zoom it has to do with the insight section. And he says, Alex says, my insight is for supermarket, and it involves the shopper, the supplier, and the supermarket. It's like a three-sided, three parties. When I'm pitching my solution to the supermarket, insights will take quite a while to share and might be too heavy, hard to make them concise and brief. What can I do about it? Should I just focus on the shopper insight to make it customer
Who
centric?
buys? Who's the buyer?
I don't know. He's got a three-sided market. I don't know. So, I mean, the other thing is all these examples where you're selling to one company. He says suppliers buy. You got back.
Suppliers
Yeah.
buy. And then why am I pitching the supermarket?
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. Like, if you have two-sided, let's do two-sided because I can't deal with three. So let's do two-sided. If I have a two-sided marketplace, the positioning of each side of the marketplace is different. Like, the reason the suppliers want to buy is different than the reason that
Right.
customers want to buy. So we usually have different positioning for the different sides of the marketplace and completely different marketing and campaigns and all the stuff for different sides. So if it's truly a marketplace thing, that's different. So I have one set of insight for the one
Right.
side, another set of insight for the other side, totally different pitches, totally different positioning.
When I'd like to point out, you might have totally different products. Like Uber has a rider app and a driver app.
That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Totally different. Like
Cool.
the reason you want to be a driver is not the reason you want to
Yeah.
be a rider
Right.
at all.
Okay, cool. Well, since we have a bunch of product people, so I want to ask a question. It doesn't have to do with this. We have to work with sales. And you're just making some jokes about sometimes, they do this sometimes.
I mean, the sales doesn't get any respect.
No. So what I want to ask you, what I'm asking you is what's your top few pieces of advice for product people to be more effective in interacting with sales?
Yeah. So, I come from product marketing, and I think that my secret superpower when I was product marketer was when I was new in a company, I would come and I would make some friends in sales, and then I would convince those people to let me just be fly on the wall in deals. So fly on the wall in particularly first call, second call, third call, fourth call. They're getting down into the gritty parts of the deal, whatever. Those are all custom but first call, we don't know much. And the way we pitch in a first call is usually pretty standard. And so listening in on a bunch of those first calls, it's easy to do with Gong, that listen to them afterwards. You might get some insight, but it's really cool to sit there with the rep and then quiz them after. Why did you do that? Why did the guy ask that and you said this? Why does that mean? What do you, and if you're new, they'll be like, okay, listen, dummy, this is how it works around here, like that, and you can be like, I don't know nothing, but why is it, so you can do that. And then as an executive, on the marketing side, and I think it's true on the product side too, like I had to have a real partnership with sales or I'm dead. That is literally how in B2B, if you're senior on the marketing side, if you don't have a good working relationship with sales, you're dead. It's very easy to fire the head of marketing. It's very hard to fire the head of sales. Like head of sales is going to live way longer than you. And so you have to have a partnership with that person, even if you don't like them. And even if you don't, whatever, like you have to get to some kind of respectful working agreement. And then you have to deeply understand their stuff. And I think that is the thing we probably worry about the least, right? It's this thing, it's qualification versus discovery is a great example of that, right? That is very fundamental in a sales process. And I see marketers come in and go, qualification, discovery, whatever. And they're like, dude, you just like wiped out 15 years of training in sales. We expect them to respect what we do and what's key for us. We need to also respect what they do. Salespeople inside of a company have more training than anyone. they get more training than anyone. They've all done Sandler sales training. You should know what that is, right? They've all done it. All of them done spin selling. If they're old enough, they've done spin selling. They've done Sandler. They've probably done 15 other ones. And we come in and we're like, these dummies, what are they doing? Where are all this stuff? They're doing it because they've got 15 years of training to do it that way. We should know that, right? We should understand. We should make an attempt to understand what they think is important in a deal. And often what looks bonkers to us is actually best practices sales stuff. And they're doing it for a reason. But we'll come in and be like, oh, we don't know why they all do like, like it really bothers me when I see people on the product side or people on the marketing side kind of like openly mocking, well, those salesmen are so dumb or whatever. It's like, we all die if they don't make their number, right? We all get fired, not just them. We all get fired. And so I think we have to learn more about sales and how sales works and what's important to them and what their processes are and, what makes them tick and what doesn't. And, like this example of, I got the sales rep that's out there that's closing everything in sight. Like sometimes it's because we've done a very bad job of setting quota. Sometimes it's because we've actually incented that guy to do that. So they're doing it because our comp structure is wrong. And so if we want to fix it, maybe we need to go fix comp or whatever, right? And if we don't want that behavior, how do we make sure that behavior doesn't happen? Right? Or are we actually rewarding them for that behavior? So things like that.
So I like your advice about we should learn more about sales. What specifically, like what should we do? How should someone who's done sales learn more about sales?
Yeah, so I would typically, so again, if I was new on a sales thing, I would always buddy up to the VP sales and understand what makes the VP sales tick. And most vice presidents of sales have a very specific sales methodology that they are using. And so we need to know what that is. So if we're Sandler sales shop, okay, now we know. If we're medic, that's different. So we should know which one the sales team is using. So then we understand their process. So, and that's, you can just go ask the guy or gal. Say, hey, what are we using? What do we use around here? What are the stages of a deal? Walk me through your Salesforce setup. Maybe not the VP for that one. But we should hang out with sales and we should ask all these questions. Like, what is our sales methodology here? But, what is our qualification criteria? Do we have, we should go and do sales training, because if it's a reasonably sized company, they have an annual sales kickoff meeting and everybody gets sales training. What's the onboarding for a new sales rep? You can go do that. Then you know what everybody's been taught to do. But most of the time, marketing and product people don't bother doing that stuff. We're like, they do their thing, I do my thing, but they're idiots and I'm not, right? But we don't actually understand what's happening over there. And then what's happening over there is generally like way more sophisticated than you think. We might disagree with it, but it's generally quite sophisticated. Because again, these people have all had training, a lot of training. We don't do any training in marketing. Product, we hardly do any. Right? But these folks have all, again, they've done, you should hear these people have a discussion. Like, we talk about agile and all this stuff. You get two sales guys in a room arguing about medic versus med pick. No, we do med pick. It's different. It's different. You don't understand, or whatever. Or, if you want to make everybody angry, you talk about challenger sale because they all hate it. We hate that. Even though they're all kind of doing it. Like, it's good to know. And then there's some of the books that everybody's read, right? Like, The New Strategic Selling. You should just read that book. Every salesperson on the planet's read that book. You should read it too. Challenger Sale, in my opinion, it's a killer book. Everyone should read that. Not everybody's using it, but everyone should read that. And then if they're doing Sandler sales training and they're sending the rep on Sandler sales training, I did Sandler sales training like 15 years ago, not because I was a salesperson, but I managed a bunch of salespeople and I was like, oh crap, I don't even know how to spell Sandler. I better go do this thing. So I got the company to pay for me to do Sandler sales training too. I was like, okay, now I get it. You know what's weird about Sandler sales training? Nobody teaches you how to do a pitch. They teach you objection handling. They teach you how to warm up a client. They teach you how to do price negotiation. They teach you how to do like a whole bunch of block and tackle sales stuff. But there is the assumption in all that training, which was, I thought, super surprising. Nowhere in that training or any of the sales training or any of the sales books I've read do they teach you how to build a pitch. this assumption is a pitch exists magically. Who knows who built it?
If only there was a book that could tell us
That's
how to
right.
do a sales pitch.
Like,
Yes.
so like never in a million years did I think I would write a book on how to do a sales pitch. I don't consider myself a salesperson, but I have been through enough sales pitch stuff that I thought, you know what? I don't know if this is the best way to do it. I am certainly not claiming it's the perfect way to do it or the only way to do it, but it's better than nothing, which is what 90% of what I see out there is like starting from nothing. So at least you're starting with something, and then you can riff on it and say, well, I disagree with this part, April, so I did this thing. Great. But it's better than nothing, which is what most folks are doing. Like most folks, they get this pitch deck and you say, who built that pitch? And they go, oh God, I don't know. This thing has been before my time, you know, and there's a pitch that has existed since the year of the flood. No one knows where it came from. You know, it's like whatever. And we're just adding a slide, taking a slide out. Nobody's ever thrown the whole thing up in the air and said, we're going to build a brand new one. That rarely happens, right? This is why these pitches are terrible. We wouldn't do that for anything else in the company. Why are we doing that for the sales pitch? Sales pitch, super important. Anyways, so that's my little rant on that. So, you know, at some point I was like, okay, well, I've been using this structure for a long time. It worked for me, worked for the companies I work with. It's better than nothing, right? So maybe you don't agree with all of it, but it's better than starting with nothing.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's wrap it there, and we can stick around and do questions and networking. So let's give April another round of applause. Thank you very much, April.